I'm Catherine Booth. I'm a game designer at Weta Workshop. We have Tales of the Shire. It's our cozy narrative life sim where you live your life as a hobbit in Bywater in the Shire.
So how does your cozy game separate itself from other cozy games out there?
Sure. So I think that obviously the Lord of the Rings twist on it is definitely a key factor that everyone's going to love about the game. We've got cooking, obviously very key to living your life as a hobbit, gardening, fishing, foraging, decorating your house. Plenty for people to do in the game.
No beer making?
No beer making. So we've got plenty of cooking, plenty of gardening, heaps of other stuff for you to do though, so that's cool.
Now I'm going to get a little nerdy here. Like, when does this game take place in the Lord of the Rings mythos?
Yeah, sure. So it happens between the events of The Hobbit and of Lord of the Rings. So in that middle point. So we've had some freedom to create our own story in Bywater. It's an area of the Shire that's not really been explored very much in The Hobbit or in Lord of the Rings. So we could be really inspired by the characters and the placement to build our own story in that space.
Yeah, you have I think it's 100 years between those two movies, just to give or take about that?
Yeah, I don't know the dates off the top of my head, but that's like the time frame, yeah.
In chapter 6, I'm not going to go, that's not that type of interview. So can you talk about how you work with Weta and the Lord of the Rings license and to make this game a reality? What do they supply to you? What do they help you with?
Yeah, so we have on our staff a really talented writer, Darren Ormandy. He is our Tolkien scholar. So he's our guy, everything goes through him, we got to make sure it's checked. And we also work closely with Middle-earth Enterprises as well, directly, to make sure that everything we're doing fits within the world, and it's so cool.
You have a really cool navigation system that I haven't seen a game in decades. You have these little birds. Talk about how that works, and it works so much more natural than a waypoint.
Yeah, for sure. We really wanted something that fit into the world. Birds felt really natural to us. It seemed to be something that fit in really easily. So instead of having sort of what we call non-diegetic waypoint markers. You've got a little bird, it's very natural. He hops from point to point when you mark something on your map, and they help you navigate around the area in Bywater.
So how do you earn rewards to decorate your house and put on different clothes and get new recipes?
So it all revolves around fellowship, being a Lord of the Rings game. So, so you build your relationships with the hobbits in Bywater by cooking food for them, working through their relationship tales. They give you rewards, things like clothing, outfits, furniture, different other things that you need in the game. So there's a hobbit who is a carpenter, and she helps you get more areas in your house, things like that. So there's a lot of it relates to how you build your relationships with the hobbits.
So you guys also have a dawn, midday, afternoon cycle. Talk about that.
Yeah, so we have, I think there's 4 or 5 different parts of the day, and a different lighting and really nice interchanges between those points in the day. It does have an impact on gameplay, so there's certain forageables that you can find only at night, things like that. The hobbits do different things at different points in the day, so each of the hobbits that you can build relationships with have their own schedule and their own sort of life, and you can find them on the map if you need to, do what you need to do with them, but they do have their own schedule based on that time of day as well.
So you mentioned cooking's a big thing in this game. Can you bring us into the designer room for a minute and talk about how you design recipes? And is it a spreadsheet? Is it a big whiteboard you guys draw on with tiers and levels?
I often joke that if you want to do game design, get good at Excel, because that's pretty much where all the magic happens. It's a giant Excel spreadsheet with a bunch of different tabs. We have one thing that's just recipes, and I'll go in and put what's going into each recipe. We, as the design team, did heaps of research into what would all the recipes be, what would be included, what would be the different ingredients that you need to put in, what would they be called, how would you find them. All of these things have to be thought about at some point. But yeah, cooking is I'm really proud of the system, because we wanted something that would be interesting and challenging to do lots of times, because it's so core to the game, but also not be punishing, to be enjoyable every time you do it and relaxing.
Yeah, talk a little about that, because it's very interactive. You're cooking, you're tenderizing, you're chopping. If you chop too much, it's too smooth. And you can add ingredients at every step. It's a very involved cooking system.
Yeah, we wanted something that didn't sort of end up down the minigame kind of route. We wanted something that matched quite closely what you would normally do while you cook. We wanted to not just be choosing your ingredients, but also be seasoning it and texturizing it and creating different layers for players who are starting out with cooking, players who are sort of mid-game with cooking, and players who are like getting really good at it, so they can still earn like bonuses and things like that as they get better at it. Because all of the things that you do in cooking relate to how much of a relationship increase you get from the hobbits. So if you're hitting those flavor combos, if you're hitting that texture bonus, if you're making a meal that they prefer, because they all have preferences, they tell you what kind of seasoning they want that day, and if you hit all of those things, you get an awesome relationship outcome with them.
How are you able to customize your Hobbit, like hair, clothes?
Hair, clothes, ears, eyes, feet, hair, of course, because we're hobbits. Ears as well. Yeah, there's plenty to do with the customization as well.
So talk about how big the map is in Tales of the Shire.
I'm not very good at quantifying.
You're going to give me kilometers, aren't you, right? You're going to give me some weird kilometers instead of miles because you're from New Zealand.
I wish I could, but I can't. I'm really genuinely like not good at quantifying it. But I can tell you that we have pulled all of the whole location has been pretty much directly lifted out of the maps that Tolkien has produced as part of Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. So we've very carefully studied them, made sure that all of the world area that we're building fits into how it would play out in that story. Like we know that the Battle of Bywater happens at the end of Return of the King. Spoilers, sorry. So we know we had to think about how would this take place in this area as well and make sure that it all still fits. So I think in terms of quantifying how big it is, there's plenty to explore. There's areas that are more developed, less developed, just places for you to look around and find your forageables. And each of the sort of hobbits that you can have a relationship with have their own little homes as well that you can like go and see what they're up to and things like that.
So is it safe to say that the game is based more on the book series, not the cinematic universe?
Yes, that would definitely be the correct, yeah.
What was the biggest challenge for you as a game director when making a cozy game? Like, what was the biggest hurdle you had to overcome?
Yeah, I think that because we really wanted to stick to the cozy feeling, relaxing, restful, the challenge of creating a game that had some challenge and some constraint without creating any kind of like minimizing failure states wherever we could, which is quite an interesting design problem to solve. And I think we've done a pretty cool job of that.
Can we talk to Bilbo? Is he in the game?
Bilbo's not in the game himself, but you will sort of hear from him I'm trying to think of the right words to describe it, but our map, for example, is the idea that it's created by Bilbo. So all of the map markers have a little narration, a little description that's from Bilbo.
What about everyone's favorite Tom Bombadil?
Yeah, so we are focusing on the hobbits. Tom Bombadil is a little bit of a way out of the Shire, so yeah, we're keeping it to the hobbits for now.
What do you think is the biggest misconception from an outsider looking at a game designer in your career? Like, what do you think is the misconception in that?
Like I said, my life is often spent in Excel.
Excel sheets.
I think that I want to say that even people who work in games often don't really know what the designers are doing, and it's mostly because our role can be quite different depending on the project, but also depending on where we're at in the project. So I could be doing quite a different day-to-day job at the start of a project, in the middle, and towards the end. So it's very varied. That's definitely something that I would say.
And so when does the game come out, and what platforms are you aiming for at launch?
So we're looking at towards the end of this year. We've got PlayStation, PC, Xbox, Netflix, and Nintendo Switch.